Hello, listener, and welcome back to a special adventure review episode of 2 Weeks, 1 Shot, a tabletop RPG variety podcast. In this review episode, we will take a quick look back at the one shot we just played and discuss the system we played it in before we talk about things we liked in this adventure, stuff the players missed, how we became closer as a family, and what we learned during our time at the virtual table. I'm joined today by my friends. Introduce yourselves, everyone.
Hey there, it's your favorite Harold. It's Harold. Hi. Good to see you again. Are you well? Are you doing okay? I'm glad. Good to hear. I was the game master, the dungeon master, the vampire master, the blood master of this game of Vampire the Requiem. And you might know me best as playing Baron von Grotanks. And what did we conclude? His name was Horny Blade, Sexy Neo?
Horny Black Neo.
Horny Black Neo.
AKA Horny Blade.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So, my best character ever made, Horny Black Neo. He'll come back.
I'm Brian, also known as Helix Missionary, and I played everyone's favorite gross Feratu, Marcus Fishman. It was a well-deserved nickname because he was like a gross individual in general.
No, he was sweet.
Like even beyond what some Nosferatu are. I mean, he was nice, but that doesn't mean he's not gross.
And I'm Alex. I played good old suburban dad, Doug Peterson, first-time vampire, full-time lover.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Fred Ravenswing. Arlen, I made it just in time.
Oh, you made it just in time.
Oh, sorry, I'm covered in baby fetus stuff and screaming because I just had a baby. What are we doing on the podcast? My name's John. Whoopity do, skibbity boop.
Well, totally actual John. That's not just Harold making an impression.
That impression got so much worse the longer it went.
I think it came back with the Scooby-Doo at the end.
Yeah, me too. I like that.
So, our last adventure, titled In the Court of Her Bloody Majesty, was played in Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition, where kindred hold sway over the dark city streets and battle one another for position, power, and feeding grounds. So let's go around the table and give some quick thoughts about the mechanics of Vampire the Requiem. And if it's okay with everyone, I'll go first. And I'll definitely say, I think out of all the games we've played, this was the one that we all had to seriously go in and learn the rules because there were so many of them. There was so much to do and know for every single type of interaction. And that's because we just did vampire stuff, right? We didn't even interact with like werewolves or whatever else the world of darkness has to offer. It was just us dealing with other kindred, and even that, just like walking into a room with another vampire, had a whole set of rules for how you're supposed to interact. And that was kind of daunting, especially for a short 3-episode adventure.
Yeah, Vampire is definitely, along with a lot of the like Chronicle of Darkness games, World of Darkness stuff, White Wolf in general does this, it has this like sort of deceptive system where you look at it from the outside and you're like, okay, it's you roll D10s and you have the pool. And once you figure that out, you're rolling them. And if you roll high enough, you get successes. And if you roll a 10, you roll again. Okay, cool. That's great. But the issue comes in with all of the little subsystems they have, which are really neat. And they do a good job of expanding on the lore of the game and setting up this really neat feeling for the game. I think that Vampire really benefits from having mechanics that intertwine with the narrative of the game really nicely, because you have all these rules for, okay, 2 vampires meet. What if one of them is more powerful than the other and they go into frenzy? What if one of them is wounded and they go into frenzy? What if they want to do the like vampire stare down at each other, and how do they do that? And how do you accommodate for different characters having different attributes? And it has everything to support that. But it means that there's a lot of rules you have to know and remember in the moment to do those things. And that's where it can easily get bogged down.
Yeah, this was all my fault. I'm so sorry. Picking up Vampire the Requiem. I had played Vampire a long time ago, and I had really happy thoughts and memories of it. And so, wow, did I get myself into one big pile of vampire poo trying to like throw together a one shot of this game, because one, it's so much to learn and do in this game, and to run this game is fucking terrifying because the amount of things that your characters and your players can do and might want to do is vast, and the amount of rules that cover it are also pretty damn vast. And on top of that, I don't want to criticize anybody's writing or anyone's style, but if anybody's picked up the book of Vampire the Requiem, it is difficult to figure out where the rule book begins and when the storybook part ends, because there's so much just prose and writing and contextual stuff that's just also caked into it. Like, it became like this mystery of like where in this book would the simple rules of like persuasion action be? How would my characters do this? And like, let me read this. It's like finding a recipe on the internet. Like, you have to get through quite a lot just to find the damn recipe.
Harold, are you saying that you don't appreciate that the same paragraph that tells you how much lethal damage feeding does also explains that it's really hot?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look up lethal damage, it starts off with, you're in a dark alleyway. It's hot. You want to find food, but yet the city won't come to your senses. Like, it just goes into this thing, and you're like, but I just need to know what happens when I roll these dice. And again, I think this is all my fault. If I had a better sense of White Wolf and how their offering of games worked, maybe I would have had a better sense of how to jump into this. But yeah, that barrier of entry as a new person picking it up and going, oh, cool, I want to play this game, not very easy.
So Vampire the Requiem, and by extension, The World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness and a lot of White Wolf games, has a very expansive rule set, as we've already kind of talked about. And all these rule sets give you the tools you need to experience the night as one of its unholy denizens. But I know we kind of touched on this already, but maybe you can expand a little bit more, each of you. What did you all think about the learning process itself, actually sitting down, absorbing the rules, and executing them for Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition?
There's a curve. There's definitely a very sort of steep curve, and it levels out eventually. I think, having played a lot of World of Darkness, Chronicle of Darkness games in the past, I can say that it's definitely a deal where when you first get into it, it's very daunting because of all the things we've already said. There's so many little subsystems. There's so many little things that you need to learn because the mechanics and the narrative and the lore are all tied into each other very efficiently. It means you kind of have to learn all of that. It's not a system where you can easily get by and just say like, okay, we're going to learn just basics of how to roll the dice, and I'm not going to worry about all of these rules about Vampire Society. Like, no, the dice are there because of the rules about Vampire Society. So you need to learn everything. And that's definitely tricky. Once you get past that first hurdle, it starts to get easier, but it's definitely a little tough. And I think a lot of games would benefit from being not one-shots and giving players a lot of time to grow into their characters, which is, again, something that I think the mechanics can support really nicely. In our case, we weren't able to really make use of that.
This game definitely is for a certain kind of role player that is, certainly somebody who's well knowledgeable on how these games work, who really wants to make a character, who wants to make a vampire. Like, the amount of options and stuff. And again, I was ragging about the prose and all the extra writing they give you, but they give you a lot in terms of just options and stories and narratives and backgrounds and styles of vampires and places and things like that. I mean, the amount is phenomenal. So the amount of things you can do is amazing. How and what you do with it is really up to you in a big way, and that is very challenging. And John talked about this when we did Call of Cthulhu. Same problem. You can do a lot of combat in this game, but they're not going to tell you what you're fighting. That's up to you to figure it out. So I had to build a vampire for you guys to fight against. I had to figure out how much damage a regular human would take, and sort of like guesstimate what a human would take before it would die. Before, how much health would a Francisco really have in the first place was all kind of up to me, which was really challenging, especially in the aspects of a one shot. A lot of that stuff was pretty challenging.
I think in terms of a one-shot campaign inside of World of Darkness, or at least Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition specifically, it's a bit of a tough sell. But as long as you know you're going into a rules-heavy system, right, and you kind of know what you're signing up for, it's not impossible to do. It just takes a lot more prep. Just a quick peek behind the scenes, right? I myself went through a lot of the source book that we were working with, and I wrote up a pretty expansive list of notes that gave details for a lot of these mechanics. And even then, while playing, you can hear during the recording, we had moments where we were like, okay, what does this even mean? And that's because we scoured a lot of this book. And just one comment on, if you're a designer for source books or anything, make your chapter titles straightforward. You know, if you got a section on combat, call it combat. Don't call it the wild yearnings of the night and then make me have to read through prose to get to the rule set, which is then hidden inside of a sub-chapter called the Court of Owls. It's so bizarre. And otherwise, the book and the system itself, all very expansive, tells you what to do in most situations, apparently, except for finding out what happens when you get a fucking tie. But
right.
Otherwise, it gives you everything. It's just hard to navigate that source book a bit. I mean, once we knew and using the index and kind of flipping through it, you find everything, but it's still like, I'd like to just go to the list of chapters and not have some obtuse title that I then have to interpret as some sort of, this is the rules for feeding. This is how I pick my traits. This is how I pick my disciplines. That was, that was a fun surprise to try and navigate afterwards. So before we close out our discussion on the game system, I don't know if we have any last comments on Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition, and let's take it back over with you, Harold.
Yeah, and again, we did not do White Wolf and the publishers of this game a lot of service. We might have made a whole joke of their very serious game, but that's just what we do. But again, I think the biggest challenge of this game is that barrier of entry and that accessibility. And again, I know this is the older version of this game. I'm told that there's a newer version of Vampire that's out there that's kind of gone through and redone the source book and really sort of focused the game. And I'm told that's quite good. But yeah, going through this one, I've heard the complaints about this, and this is something that I think everybody who's in the TTRPG world knows, is that barrier of entry thing is real. Like it's hard to get into this stuff unless you got somebody there to bring you into it. This is one of those games where unless you're into it, unless you really, really want to be a vampire, it's gonna be discouraging. It's gonna be hard to pick this one up. That being said, though, it's still appealing. It's still cool because, again, your abilities to just flesh out a really, really full, interesting character is definitely in the system.
I'll keep my comments short, and it's essentially, we might have shit on the source book and the system a little bit during our play and right now during the review, but the reality is it's a very fun game. Had a really good time. I got to make a very silly vampire, but with very serious vampire rules, which was, again, kind of cool. In the context of a short game that happens in one night, and it's my first time playing vampire, it's tough getting into, but with more prep and more willingness to be a creature of the night, right? That barrier to entry, while it may be high, is not worth climbing, right? Double negative there, I guess. Yeah. So overall fun, just kind of a lot to chew when you first take a bite out of it.
Yeah, it's definitely that very, sort of foreboding feeling to it. And I think part of that comes from the fact that out of all the games we've played, I would say even more so, D&D obviously is like the biggest, that's the big one, right? That is the tabletop RPG that people know of. Call of Cthulhu is very, very popular and well known within the tabletop RPG space, but I would argue that Vampire is probably more storied in general. Vampire has been around for so long and is such a culture, right? It's almost more than just a tabletop RPG. And in fact, it 100% is more than that, because I know that there are vampire LARPs that happen across the country and across the world.
Sexy.
Very regularly. And that speaks to something that it does very well, where it's my opinion that the best RPGs are going to go one of two ways. They're either going to be very open-ended so that you can do almost any kind of game with them and, allow you to explore a lot of different kinds of games, or they're going to be super niche and focus on one thing. And Vampire very much is that. It only does vampires. But if you want to play a vampire and if you want to play out being a vampire in especially the modern day, but really like throughout, any setting, if you want to play vampires and do a game where you're being vampires, Vampire is the game to play. There is nothing else that will do it as well. That's really what it comes down to. And it's definitely a lot of fun for doing that.
So let's move over now to the actual adventure we played in the court of Her Bloody Majesty. I'm still filled with so much sexy, sexual sex energy. But aside from that, what were some of your favorite moments in the adventure, Harold?
I think it's this unwarranted sexual energy that I've brought into the podcast and friendship that now lingers in all of our interactions and conversations and will probably will forever.
I wish it wouldn't, but
we're going to have to do something about it, guys. We're going to have to exercise it. We're going to have to get together and really, really touch butts or something to get this out,
Just a good 3-way kiss. That'll fix it.
4-way. We have to find John again. He's still here. He's still part of the podcast.
That's right. We got to get him in here. Yeah, we'll find him.
If anybody wants to send fan art,
just a good 4-way kiss between friends.
There you go. That's exactly what we need. No, but I think my favorite thing about this was, again, everything we just said about how challenging this game was, all the stuff we did. You guys bought into it so well, and I was so happy with that. I was so, behind the scenes, guys, I'm a stressed out dude. I was stressed the fuck out about this. I was really worried that this was going to completely fall apart and we would not actually get any game at all. And you guys came in with such character. It's all you guys, all three of you, such ridiculous energy. And then yeah, God bless Francisco and his ability to say yes and come in and roll with things. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he did such a great job. Very, very, very happy. And a big, big thank you, Francisco, if you're out there. Mucho gracias. You're the best. Second best, Rodriguez, but you are the best.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Always remember that.
You're also the best. I'll tell you. Shut up.
I think a lot of my favorite moments really were the comedic energy that we were bringing, along with the sexy energy, which was definitely good, but definitely something I think that we've been doing, throughout the whole season and probably will carry on throughout the entire podcast will always be that we're sitting down playing games. We're just some friends, rolling dice, having a good time, making jokes. And I think in Vampire in particular, that really was a lot of fun because Vampire wants to be so serious a lot of the time. And it can be fun to be that serious, don't get me wrong, but there's only so many times that you're going to read passages about the power of the blood and the beast within and the darkness and the nightlife and all this. And eventually it's going to boil over and you're going to have to crack a joke, at least if you're anyone like all of us, I guess.
If you're a human and not just a vampire.
And so all of those moments from horny black Neo giving up on the fancy accent and going into just being listen guys, fuck it, this is my job, we gotta do this. All of the moments where our vampires met each other and the reveal of none of us are big fancy guys, we're just 3 dudes hanging out being vampires. And then definitely the moment at the end of we're in this very sort of hopeless fight and it seems like there's no way out until we all remember that, wait a minute, vampire politics are a thing. And we can absolutely just tell this guy, hey, listen, what if we're just not a problem and we let you murder him and we all go about our lives and pretend this never happened? And that might seem like it was just sort of an ass-pull moment for us to get out of a fight that was not going our way, but that's the sort of ass-pull moment that you too can have in your vampire games because it's very fitting to the lore. Vampires will absolutely do that.
Man, I honestly, favorite bit is always just playing a game with you guys, not that John guy, but you guys.
Yeah.
No. Brian, I got to tell you, Marcus Fishman, you were on point with that character. I feel like so much of the interactions and the narrative part of it, John and I really got to, we did a bunch of stuff, right? But we kind of got to take a seat back and you you were like interacting, pushing the vampire politics, talking within, right? John's just a guy who lives.
Thanks for reading the chapter, Brian.
Yeah. John is just a guy who lives in a graveyard, and I'm just a suburban dad. But you were like you knew about the coven, the seven, your a political affiliation thing. Like I
The Carthians. Yeah, no, if I can say real quick, Marcus was a blast to play because I intentionally made him as like, he's a vampire who's going to be a little more in the know because I know a little more about the lore than you and John did by virtue of having like played the game in the past and done some stuff with it. And then also just the fact that because we were set in the pandemic and people are wearing masks, the opportunity to play a Nosferatu who is at all social is a lot of fun.
That was good stuff.
Because you cannot normally. It doesn't work.
And on top of that, yeah, big shout out to Frank for coming in for yet another game. You're going to see him in season 2, shocker. He's somehow still putting up with us and letting us drag him into some of these adventures. And I, as always, cannot be more grateful. He always comes in and he kills it with the characters that he makes, and he kills it with the voice work, of course. And Harold, thank you for the gift of horny black Neo. That was a lot of fun. The stupid joke, I know he was supposed to be Blade. If you listening didn't get that, he was supposed to be Blade.
That was the idea. Apparently not a lot of Blade fans in the podcast, though.
We all just collectively agreed to not call him Blade.
As a joke, I said Neo just because I thought that was the most opposite thing, still wearing leather. And next thing you know, that's what it turned into. He was supposed to be Blade.
It was supposed to be Blade.
That was really funny. That was a really good time. And now, drum roll, the moment we've all been waiting for. Harold finally announces the launch of his OnlyFans.
It's true. It's mostly butt stuff.
It's always butt stuff.
Always butt stuff.
And he also tells us about anything we might have missed or anything that went awry during the adventure.
Yeah, I was, just as what we talked about, the game, and the rules were so complicated. I just wanted to keep it straightforward and let you guys have an opportunity just to be vampires and do some vampire stuff. So it's really just like, you're gonna walk into a room, you're gonna suck on your brother's neck. You're going to have a conflict. And that's all I wanted to give you guys. And that was apparently enough to fill, how many hours of podcast was that? Like 4? I don't know. It was a lot. Yeah, Horny Black Neo was supposed to be Blade. That was going to be my red herring. I was going to try to make him like a little spookier, a little cooler, make you like maybe worry that maybe he was going to like do something, and never came up, and then I rug pulled, and, Frank came from the ceiling, and you had the opportunity to kill Baron von Grotanks. I was thinking you guys would like kill everybody. Maybe you'd kill Frank. Maybe you'd kill Baron von Grotanks. I was thinking I'd had the contingency of putting Queen Elizabeth in one of the back rooms as like the ultimate vampire for you guys to fight. I got some pushback on that idea. I'm not really sure why, but people weren't really happy with the idea of having the Vampire Queen of England be part of the podcast. But if we do Vampire again, it will be that we'll do we'll do like a season of The Crown, but with vampires. That'll be the sequel for this.
There we go.
If I may recommend, as an alternative to a season of The Crown with vampires, my grandmother recently started watching Downton Abbey, and my grandfather referred to it as Downtown Abbey.
Hell yeah, dog.
I did too, for years, for sure.
Downtown Abbey with vampires would be something.
Downtown Vampire Abbey is something I would definitely watch, for sure.
That's pretty good. That's powerful. All right, before the curtain falls on another adventure, let's go one more time around the table. And let's talk about a couple of lessons learned during this last one. What can we say we're going to apply to next season and then not do so at all? Why don't you go ahead and start, Brian?
I think lessons learned this time around is that we really can just, take a game and have fun with it. Because I think a lot of our other one-shots this season, we've, I know that I was talking about like, yeah, we've just been goofing off, having a good time. But like, I feel like this one more so than the others, that was our goal. Like we would just went into this. And I think part of that came back to the mechanics of looking at this book and being like, we are not going to be able to do a serious take on this at all because there is too much. So what if we just don't. And then we got this wonderful, lovely adventure that we had so much fun with. And I think that's something we can definitely apply, is just, having fun, not really worrying about, delivering a very serious narrative or anything super crazy. Sometimes it can just be, goofy and campy, and just, a few characters going around, following them for a night of doing some stuff.
Yeah, I think, we've done this podcast a couple of times. I don't know. Is this episode like 13? Lucky number 13? I don't even know. You tell me, viewers, what number episode is this?
I think it was 13.
Hey,
didn't we
look
end
at
on
me.
13?
Harold, we never started a podcast. You're still dreaming.
What?
Wake up. Wake up,
Oh
Harold.
my God.
Wake
Is
up.
this my therapy session? I get these confused all the time. I'm so sorry. Ah, man, you get therapy on Zoom now. Just everything kind of blends together. Anyway, yeah, I mean, just echoing Brian, like, I love you guys. I trust you guys. We are a weird group of friends. And just because we're a group of weird dudes that make like lots and lots of jokes constantly doesn't mean we can't do something that's serious. We're not going to do it seriously, but we could still do it, And I think that's something we, making this podcast, being a part of the TTRPG community, there's a lot that we want to do, we like to do, and we're feeling compelled to do. We want to show the games well. We want to play the games right. We want to educate the audience a little bit and give them a good sense of what these games are like. But on top of that, we are ourselves, and we are just a couple of weirdos that like to have fun. And all these games are going to work, and everything is going to work. And I think that's something I learned being the DM for this one too. This was definitely a challenge for me as a DM. I definitely wanted to get it right. I was worried about getting it right. It's going to work. You're going to have fun. It's a game. And I think that was definitely something I learned.
Harold, you're just saying that we're just the best podcast and can play any game because we're that funny.
Yep.
The audience, they tune in to hear us mess up. And I'm so grateful for it. Keep doing that, guys. Yeah.
In summary, love each other.
Yeah. Do that if you have to.
Love each other and be funny.
Yeah. Be funnier. Yeah, I think to comment on what you're saying, Harold, like, yeah, I know we do most of these for the goof, right? I'd love to see us pull off a little bit of a tonal shift and some adventure in the future. To be honest, I don't know. It's hard to say like we'll do a serious adventure because
we'll be serious. We'll be serious, guys. Don't worry.
We'll do a dramatic one.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll see. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
It might be our worst episode.
Yeah,
but we'll do it.
It might be. Yeah, right. But we owe it to ourselves to give it a shot. Yeah, I think though the base lesson I learned, at least just playing, just having the simpler the character concept, the more freedom you have to shell out this improv side of playing your character. I mean, for Doug Peterson, I think I said in the episode I watched Fargo before I jumped on and we played. Like, that's literally what happened. I was watching Fargo and I went, God, what would a vampire be from this part of the world? And then I just chose to ignore that you set this in London and put that character in there. And honestly, it was such a simple concept, and I got to have a lot of fun doing it. I know John Ravenswing was, if you're eagle-eared, I think is a term we've used before, he was just one of the guys from the IT crowd, essentially, the guy who lives in the closet. Brian's concept of just a Nosferatu, right? Who generally has to like relegate themselves to like back alleys and the streets, but it's the pandemic. You can wear a mask now. Like, just such a simple concept with a lot of room to just kind of breathe and mess around. And I think that really made, despite it being us being so goofy, right, kind of increased that buy-in even more because it was so fun being these characters. All right, well, so thank you, the person listening with your ears, your totally human, not vampire ears, for tuning in to this special episode of 2 Weeks, One Shot, a tabletop RPG variety podcast. That is our show for season 1. Woo! But do not fret. Do not panic, dear listener.
I'm fretting, Alex.
I told you not to, because we'll be back soon for season 2. And with more adventures, more guests, more jokes, and more just sexual tension between Harold and Brian. Just will they, won't they? The suspense is just killing me.
It will kill you. Be careful.
I wasn't told about the sexual tension part.
I was.
You can cut through it with a knife, Brian. Don't try to deny it. Look, listener, while we work on season 2, I have a homework assignment for you. So take out your pen and pencil, write this down. Yes, you sitting there driving your car. Your name's Larry. All right, I'm talking to you specifically, Larry. Tell some friends about the show.
You, Larry.
Yeah, we see you, Larry. Tell some friends about the show. We're not advertising in any way, so really word of mouth is our best tool to grow. And the more we grow, the more validation I receive, and the more I can rub it in Frank's face that I am assuredly the best Rodriguez. So anyway, check the episode notes to find links to our Twitter, our Instagram, and our Facebook, and join in the conversation with hashtag TWOScast. That's TWOS cast. And until next season, we will see you soon.
Bye.
So was this whole podcast really just a way for you to get Harold and me together and overcome your brother, Alex? Is that really all this has been?
Always was. Always has been.
Damn.
Makes sense.
All right. I'm looking forward to season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddies.
Maybe we'll finally get rid of Harold. Ah, shit, he's still on the call.
Fuck.
That's awkward.
Season 2 will have more Harold, more grow tanks, more sexual furry energy. Furry pirates coming season 2.
No, not furry. No, it's not. It's definitely not.
Coming season 2 right away. Nothing but furry pirates. Furry pirate vampires. Furry pirate Call of Cthulhu. Furry pirate Dungeons and Dragons. I'm gonna be a furry dragonborn furry. That's right. That's me. That's you. That's all of us.
Furry pirates are coming, and so is Harold.
I'm gonna stop recording now.